Hey there, welcome to episode 20 of the Golf Never Sleeps podcast. Coach Ryan Roblard here, PGA of Canada golf coach, and we've made it to 20 episodes. Originally, when I launched this podcast, I committed to doing 20 episodes, and I said I'd review at the end if I'm going to keep going. Well, I'm happy to announce that if you're enjoying the podcast, I'm having a lot of fun doing this, so I'm going to continue beyond 20 episodes. So enough about that, let's talk about today's podcast. Today I have a fantastic guest. I have Coach Kyla Inaba. Kyla is a PGA of PGA of Canada golf professional based out of British Columbia, and she's the recent recipient of the 2023 PGA of BC Teacher of the Year. Kyla has a deep history in playing professional golf, including spending some time in Australia, and we talk about how that time traveling the world kind of shaped her into the golf coach that she's become. We talk about her transition into coaching, and then we also dive in and we talk about her program. She has a phenomenal women's program called Golf Like a Girl, and after doing some quick math, we figured that she has had thousands of women, or at least over 1,000 women, come through that program. So we kind of dive into those details, and we talk about some things we see on the lesson tee and some opportunities to help you play better golf, and maybe some ways to look at lessons and programming and some possible opportunities that can just help you get more out of the coaching program that you're currently in. So Kyla and I have a fantastic interview. Kyla's a pal of mine. We've had a chance to hang out in person on several different occasions. I respect her a lot in what she's doing, and I think you'll thoroughly enjoy this interview. So let's dive right in. My interview with PGA of BC Teacher of the Year, Kyla Inaba. Kyla Inaba, thank you for coming on the Golf Never Sleeps podcast.
You literally never sleep. You do so many things. I'm always in awe of how many things you do. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, when I came up with the name, I don't know how the name came up, but I was like kind of spitballing with a buddy of mine, and it kind of came up, and I did like a quick domain name search, and golfneversleeps.com was available. So I was like, well, perfect. Away we go. But I feel that there's tons of coaches, and I believe you're one of them as well, that are just like constantly in go mode, and as we called it right before we started it, basically nerd mode. Yes. So I'm looking forward to having a conversation today.
Awesome. Me too.
So I'll do a little bit of an explanation who you are, maybe at the front of the episode, but essentially, if anyone were to Google your name, they find essentially a fairly accomplished player who played some professional golf, turning into golf coach. I guess maybe give us like the 1 minute rundown of that amateur playing career that got you into coaching. How did you get to coaching point?
Yeah, for sure. I always actually forget about my playing career. That feels like so long ago, but obviously it's a big part of where I am now. So I played collegiately at UBC for 4 years with the Thunderbirds. And then I wasn't quite ready to turn pro as I graduated. So I stayed like as a competitive amateur until I was, I think 25. Okay. And then turned pro and played pro for, I want to say 6 or 7 years, which took me kind of a little bit of Symetra Tour stuff over to Australia mostly, which is where I played most of my professional golf. Smattering of kind of state opens, Canadian Tour stuff back in the day. And then I was kind of just like, at this stage, I think it's a pretty big jump to get to kind of from where I am now to like LPGA consistently. So I said, okay, there's a one coaching opportunity, and maybe we'll just get my feet wet and see if I like it. And I guess it was more instruction opportunity at that point. And that was 7 years ago, and I've never looked back. So I got my foot in the door at Predator Ridge. And here I am now. I just feel like every year you feel like, okay, I'm finding my stride. I'm getting this, I kind of feel like I'm owning it. And then just every year you get better and better, right? So yeah, that's kind of the Coles Notes version, kind of from player into teaching into coaching and instruction.
That's really cool. How did you settle on Australia as kind of deciding to go play golf down there? I'm assuming that that's maybe not the avenue that maybe most players are looking at. How'd you end up there?
Yeah, correct. So I had 2 friends that went and played Australia kind of before my time. And I was just like, man, I think that's so cool. You can get stuck in that like American mini tour circuit and just be kind of like running on a hamster wheel almost. Like you're playing, but you're not necessarily making any progress as far as like playing on a tour that will get you to the LPGA necessarily. There's new tours now since then that have that kind of model, but back then there wasn't. And so I just said, well, I'm going to go play a tour that feels like I'm actually playing a tour, like week to week, co-sanction events with the European tours. You're playing with some great players. I was actually paired with Laura Davies in one of the majors over there, which is really cool. And so, yeah, I just decided, hey, I'm going to just pick up and go to Australia and see what it's all about. And so that was a pretty courageous decision on my part at that point.
No doubt.
In my life, just hopping on an airplane and going. But it was one of the best decisions. So certainly I would encourage any players that are looking to kind of develop to like get out of their comfort zone and go do it.
Yeah, I think anyone who thinks about trying to chase that dream, maybe they kind of go down that tunnel of like, all right, it's going to be in the US, or it's going to be as far as I can maybe handle being away geographically, where you took it as like, no, I'm actually going to go to a completely different country that I will probably maybe never go to ever again and see if I can set my footing up there. But maybe that initiative or that courage that you have is probably showing itself as you continue to develop golfers and help them kind of along their journey to be like, hey, look, like I've taken a ton of risks myself. I've made some very challenging decisions, but maybe you can draw on some of my experience to help you get to where you're trying to get to. So that's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Did Laura make the like dirt divot that kind of like, yeah.
Yes.
So that's like a real thing she does all the time.
It's a real thing she does. She does use a tee though.
Okay.
And I was trying to like play my own game and not get too obsessed with, oh my gosh, I'm playing with Laura Davies. But I think she hit like a cut with the low grass tee and a draw with maybe the high actual tee. So anyways, it was quite fun. It was quite fun. That's cool.
Yeah. So you mentioned Predator Ridge. So I guess I didn't realize. So Predator Ridge, that was your first gig, and that's where you've been ever since, correct?
Yeah. That's kind of where I learned the ropes.
And in doing some research, Predator Ridge seems like an incredible place to work out of. Well, obviously to play, but in terms of the facilities that they have there, it really looks like they have all the bases covered. Can you touch a little bit about like what kind of spot do you have to work out of here? Does it have everything?
Yeah, it's pretty cool. We have a lot of amenities, and it's just not your average country club, right? So it's Predator Ridge Resort. We've got a member base, and then we're also open to public, and we've got a resort there. So we have lots of amenities that our members and our resort guests can use. And yeah, for me, coming into somewhere like that, and I had worked previously at different country clubs that were kind of semi-private, some public when I was working in Australia. But this just, you can't really compare Predator Ridge to anything else. It's kind of firing on all cylinders all the time. So it was a perfect place for me to step into as a new coach, because I was sitting there learning how to work with the membership, learning how to teach a resort guest lesson, groups, clinics, privates, juniors, all of it, right?
Yeah, it seems like you've definitely had some diversity around not just one-off lessons, but also some group stuff. And also you've built that into some season-long programs, which I want to touch on a little bit as well. When you first got to Predator Ridge, or kind of maybe when you first started coaching, it seemed like you're in that transition period, right? You had just finished playing. You said, maybe I'll try coaching. I don't know if coaching is going to be my thing, but it's something I want to at least try. Who were your like early influences or mentors early on that maybe you looked up to that obviously guided you to continue to coach to the point where now it's your full-time career and passion?
Right. Yeah. So I had never really taught I had helped out with some junior camps, like as a professional player giving back, or as a competitive amateur giving back, but I had never actually taught a lesson. And so that very first lesson, I just remember standing there on the range going like, oh my God, I have no idea what I'm doing. I'm gonna, you know what you know as a player. And from your influences, from your coaches in the past. So I guess that's where I took some of my kind of early mentoring from, as my own previous coaches, my college coaches. I was really into kind of the TPI fitness stuff. So some of my mentors in the TPI arena, and that was it. And then I was just kind of like yourself, I just kind of got into anything and everything I could learn, and just I've never stopped. Like it's just you never stop learning, right?
Yeah. I in a previous conversation, I was recently asked about my first lesson that I ever gave. And like, I know the classic saying is like, boy, I got to go back and give a lot of people their money back. But yeah, those first couple of lessons, but I guess it's like that in every single industry. But I just remember like standing on the driving range and my players got a full basket of balls, and you can tell, and they were also a brand new player. So brand new coach, brand new player. And I'll never forget, at the end of the lesson, I looked down range and the entire basket is maybe like 40 feet in front of us. Like, I don't know if we got a ball in the air. Like,
Yep, totally. But I think even then, like I always say to new coaches, like, you know more than you think you know.
Yeah.
Right. So like, even if you feel like it's not a fantastic lesson, hopefully there's still some take home messages for that player in front of you. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah. And I give that message a lot. And actually something similar, just because a player in front of you has been playing golf for a long time or think that they know a lot. And I think you could agree to this. If so few players know what they actually do or how their body actually moves, where they're actually aiming different things like that, where it's like, I think even sometimes there's some lessons that I give and the biggest takeaway is like, I knew how to tell a player where to align himself 5 years ago, right? Like I could have taught that back then as well. So
Right.
it's interesting as we go along that maybe you see both sides of it.
Yeah, 100%. I think we get better at managing expectations as a coach, like getting the player in front of us to manage their expectations better and getting them to slow down and understand concepts and that kind of thing better now than we knew how to back when we were kind of newbies, right, as instructors.
Yeah, can we dive into that maybe a little bit more? The one thing you said there, something I always try to challenge myself is never try to rush to give them the answer. The person's not there paying us for the quick answer. They're there paying us for the correct answer. Mm-hmm. And you talked about managing expectations. What's like the one thing that you think people really get wrong with their expectation when they show up to a lesson?
Well, I think generally speaking, a lot of golfers, and maybe I have a little bit more of this than you do being at a resort, but it's just like, oh, she'll just fix me in one lesson, right? And like now I rarely will ever sell one lesson. Like you can't do it in one lesson, right? It's about the process. It's just like physiotherapy. It's just like losing weight. It's like you're not going to go to the gym one time and lose 10 pounds. So I try to kind of give the player in front of me like an analogy like that, to be like, hey, look, if you're doing a new recipe in the kitchen, you're not going to read it once, close the cookbook and like know how to do it. You're going to go back to that cookbook, read the ingredients, read how to do it, how to cook it. Right. So I think that's one of the biggest parts about handling expectations in of that player in front of you.
Yeah. There's so many analogies, and I think the crazy part is that even with those analogies that are so clear and make so much sense, people still show up with the like, oh, hey, I have a slice. Is it gone yet? Like, where's my beautiful push draw? You mentioned that you don't give many one-off lessons, or very rarely kind of give one-off lessons. And I know I'm in the same boat. But just kind of curious, can you give us a little bit of an overview of the season-long programs that you have? Maybe what do they look like? How do you frame them? And how have you gotten to a point where you can explain to a player, I'm not doing one-offs. This is why I go all season long, and this is why I want you along for the ride.
Yeah, for sure. So I think it is just managing expectations. I think having been in kind of my position for as long as I have now, people don't expect, like they just want to spend time. Probably the same with you. Like they know if they just spend time with me, they're going to get better. And so the biggest message I try to kind of get out there to, I guess, market or sell my season long programs is like, if you just show up, you're going to get better, right? So show up to the group practices. Of course, they're going to show up to their private lessons. That's kind of what people will buy into, right? But it's the extras that, someone will show up to a group practice and really it's just a bunch of, let's say, drills or stations on how to practice, like what you should be doing in your normal practice.
Right.
And they come out of that hour session, they're like, oh my gosh, that's the best practice session I've ever done. I got so much out of that. Whereas a lot of people on the outside, they're going like, I don't need 10 group practices. Like I don't need that. But
Right.
really, that's the secret sauce, right? That's where you're going to pick up on these little things. That's where maybe even one of the other members of the group, they learn from their peers, right? So I think that's really powerful. And then also just getting a TPI person or doing a TPI screen, even as a golf professional, seeing how they move. Then maybe getting a TPI fitness person involved. We have for sure a TPI physio guy involved. And I just go, hey, look, based on what I saw on your TPI screen, we need to do some major like hip mobility stuff.
Right.
This is the name of our TPI physio that we work with. I would suggest to, set up something with that person so that I go, okay, wow, you can move way better. We can get into better position, right? Brought on a mental coach as well this year for our junior elite season long. That's just been really beneficial, right? You don't get that as just a 5-pack or a 10-pack of lessons.
No, I think you said so many really good things there. When I had first looked at moving into year long, what I decided to do was I just looked back and I took my adults as a sample size. Like all the adults I gave lessons to, the people that wanted a lesson every week, I looked back and the average amount of time I saw them a year was like 7 hours. The people that want but they want to buy the 15-pack or whatever it was. So then when I looked at my adult program, I'm like, what if I turn 7 hours into 20 hours? Like if they see me 3 times more, they're going to get like, it's not trying to be egotistical. They're going to get better if they spend that much time. And if a player shows up saying, oh, I'm committed, I want to take all these lessons, perfect. Let's look at it in a yearly scope and let's spend this many hours. And sometimes when players look at like, wow, that's a lot of hours. I said, exactly. Let's imagine how much better we're going to be. You mentioned that assessment component. I have an assessment included on the front end. And sometimes like that's one of the biggest ones. People are like, oh, can I opt out of that or whatever it is?
Right.
I have not had a person speak negatively about that assessment when they go. And it's always, and I tell this, it's amazing. I have a player that'll go for their assessment. Then when they show up a couple weeks later, I go, man, we're moving really good today. Oh, I saw Dr. Andrew and he's got me doing this. And I'm like, oh, so like this works.
Right.
Hey, I hope you're enjoying this podcast episode. If you are, I have a favor to ask. If you're watching on YouTube, please make sure that you subscribe to this channel, like this video, and make sure you hit that bell to make sure you get notified on when a new episode drops. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts, please make sure you subscribe there as well. But if you could leave me a rating, wherever you're listening or watching, if you do those things for me, it really helps the podcast grow and also motivates me to put out more content. And as always, on any platform, if you ever have any questions, please reach out. Let me know. I answered every comment. Now let's get you back to your episode.
Exactly. It's just getting them to buy in, right? Because as soon as they're in, they're improving, right? And you're right, like getting those extra hours in, and even if it's just supervised practice, if there's 10 people in a practice, at least I got my eyeballs on them for another hour.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I'm not at a member facility, and I feel if I was at a member facility, that would be the one thing that I would have more of, which would be more of group time. But unfortunately, my players are already members at a lot of different clubs.
Gotcha.
But I think, and I know a lot of people have those open range hours or different things like that. But I believe, and I learned this so much because I play golf with all of my players, and even like what you said about the way that they practice, spending time on course with them, it's amazing what they'll say about what they see me do. But sometimes even within a couple holes, I'm like, oh my God, we're never going to the range ever again. Like we're going in fairway bunkers and we're learning how to punch out shots. Like, like our next lesson, meet me in the trees because I know we're going to hit it because we play a narrow golf course, and bring your 3-iron. And we're just going to learn how to hit a punch out shot.
Yeah. The on-course stuff is so huge. I try to do like even a 4-hole assessment at the beginning of the year with each player. And I'll try to pair them up with like other players around the same skill level. And for me, and of course for you, just a game changer to actually see, oh my gosh, all right, so you came in thinking we need to work on your full swing. Man, if we just work on your chipping, your bunkers, and even like your short putting, that's the low hanging fruit, right? So results and scores are going to come down if we can really see as coaches like, oh, we just need to work there.
Right? Yeah. And I have a couple of players that always give me pushback, and I literally harp on them to track some of their stats and send me their scorecards and different things like that. But that's another one. It's like, if I can see a player on course a few times, and if they send me their scorecards and a couple of stats, we can drill down so narrow on where we have to spend that range time, or that time that we spend in private lessons, that's when we start to really accelerate. We're like, you can turn a 20 into a 10 in half a year, as opposed to that 20 who just wants to hammer driver and is a 20 handicap for 3 straight years.
You got it. Yeah, it was interesting. I had a playing lesson this past summer with one of my students, and we worked, I think, mostly on wedges. He did kind of say this year he wanted to work on short game. Okay. So we got out on the course, and this is my first time being on course with him for whatever reason. The past few years were just other things were going on. So he had the putting yips. And I was like, what are we doing working on your chipping? We should have been working on your putting. So we get him into the claw. And he had tried kind of left hand low, different things. And I'm just like, when I have a student with the yips, I usually go, putt with your left hand, I'll video it slow-mo. Putt with your right hand only, I'll video it slow-mo. And you kind of can see where the tremor is in which hand. And so then we take that hand off, right? So we put him into kind of your conventional claw, because the right hand was his tremor hand. And he sent me a note like a week later, and he's like, this was life-changing. And I just went like, we should have done this like 3 years ago, right? So yeah, it's just so important to get out on the course with your students.
Yeah, and even I've been watching some of my players and maybe more on the competitive side compete this fall, and I used to always have the mindset when we were going indoors in the winter, I'm like, okay, great. Like, it's November. We're going to work on your full swing. Like, that was always my mindset. Half of my players this year, we've already had conversations going like, no. We're not spending that much time on your full swing this winter. Although we're indoors, but we need to develop your chipping technique and your putting. Like, we got to work on that a ton. We cannot wait until we get back outside. And I think that's been a really big shift. And I know that I'm going to spend more time working short game in the off season, which was a pitfall that I always stepped in. This has to be technical season. No, not when you get to see the players play and kind of sift through the BS they give you of what they think they need to work on, as opposed like, no, a lot of things are telling us this is what we have to work on.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting shift. Like, I don't know if you're like, when you and I were juniors, let's say growing up, like, we would just short game, right? Because a lot of time, for whatever reason, like maybe there were less available ranges or whatever for us. But like, it was always like, we were really good short game junior players. And now, because of social media, or because of maybe just ranges are more available, it is just more full swing. I don't know. That's just what I found.
I think one thing that's changed, or something that I know has changed, is like the drop off all day mentality has changed. And I think what you had was like, when you got dropped off at the golf course, you couldn't just keep going around the golf course. Right. You might have got dropped off one morning and your tee time wasn't until noon. Or especially with some clubs where access to the tee is very, very, very restricted. Where players had to do that. But I think more and more now, there's less and less players, even ones that become very good players, there's less and less of like the drop off at 8 a.m., get picked up at 8 p.m. And I think
that's what we did.
And I think because of that, they're like, well, if I'm only at the golf course an hour before I play, or if I've only got 30 minutes, or you tell most kids, they're going to, especially if range balls are not included, or with their membership, or whatever, they're going directly to the range and they are just hammering golf balls. I guess it's maybe just something 100%. That I'm seeing.
Yes, I would agree with that.
So So your junior elite program, they have physical, they have mental, they have on course. Are you watching them play as well? Like, are you
Yeah,
going to events when they compete?
I usually try to get to our zone 2 is the kind of zone we're in the
Yep.
Okanagan. And so I usually try to get to one or maybe two of those events just so I can see them in competition. If it were to work, and hopefully in the future I'll be able to get to, let's say, the BC Junior or something like that. I'd love to do that. But right now, I do think it's really important to see them in competition. So I get to at least one or two zone competitions in the spring usually.
So what's the thing that you notice when they're in competition and it's not you and them playing, you're literally just a spectator, right? They're in competition, because I feel like there's levels. There's the way they act and the expectations they have in practice on the range and what they think.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's how they act and what they think when they're with coach on the golf course. And there's like that third level when they're actively in competition, you're not around, or when you're watching but can't say anything.
Right.
What do you think is the biggest difference or maybe disconnect that you see when players are competing?
I think it's all the non-technical things. Like, it's the routine, it's the post shot routine, right? Like, easy things like, did you hold your finish and did you have a neutral reaction, right?
Yeah.
Or it's like, did you calculate the right number? Like, did you laser to the front of the green and then to the pin? Or did you laser the cover on the bunker? Right? Those kind of things. Just like, I'm like, they're so simple. We just need to make sure they're part of your like routine.
Right.
So that's where I think it's beneficial to just watch them and go, oh my gosh, if we just work on like, okay, let's make sure if the pin's at the back, we know that we have the pin number, we know that we have the back of the green number, and we're going to hit to like a safe spot, right? Like, just course management stuff, I think, is the biggest thing I see.
It's the podcast I released last week. The title is "What the Heck is a Post Shot Routine?" So, you're so spot on that I feel that I'm starting to get my players do a better job getting the additional required yardages.
Right.
But the thing that I still feel so many players, especially juniors, and honestly, sometimes even players as they start to work their way up, they are just not honest enough with how far their golf clubs actually go.
Yeah.
Or they don't know how far they actually go, and they become like front bunker kings. And it's like, man, you know why there's no bunkers at the back of greens, kids? Because nobody ever goes long, right? Like, yes, it might be slow back to front and you're in jail, but there's never a bunker because no one will ever be in that bunker.
Right. Yeah. I think club golfers for sure, like your average amateur, whatever, anywhere from a eight cap to a 30 cap, for sure they don't know their carry distances. They might know their total rollout, and usually it's their max, right? Oh my God, this one time I hit my 7-iron like 170 yards, so that's how far my 7-iron goes. So that's a huge one. Actually, Predator Ridge just got Top Tracer this season.
Fantastic.
And so part of like our group practice, like, or homework will be, okay, you need to get your, like, today you're doing your carry distances on your wedge matrix and your iron, whatever it is, right?
Right.
So yeah, that's a huge thing, Ryan, big time.
But that just opens up to the comment, that machine must be broken. This club goes way farther than that.
Oh yeah. Totally right. You see that all the time with the Top Tracer or even in the simulators. Like, what? My driver goes way further than that.
I had a player once, I kind of had to stop him. I said, like, the biggest misconception you have is you're assuming that you're going to make acceptable contact 100% of the time.
Right.
And I'm like, you honestly have to, at the skill level he was, I'm like, we got to assume we're going to make perfect contact or solid contact 60% of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And that 40% is killing you.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. I want to pivot into a different program because I believe this is something that I want to learn more about. And I hope that a lot of people want to learn more about. Swing Like a Girl program.
Yeah.
It's something you post a decent amount on social about, and it's something I've really enjoyed watching. What is the Swing Like a Girl program that you run?
Totally. So I would say Swing Like a Girl is probably what most people would know me for. It's kind of like my brand in the Okanagan and British Columbia. They're going, okay, women's golf, Swing Like a Girl. That's Kyla Inaba at Predator Ridge. So Swing Like a Girl originally was started by AJ Ethorn, who was the director of instruction before me. And she also played on the LPGA Tour, and she also caddied on the PGA Tour and the LPGA Tour after that.
Oh,
So
no way.
so she started the program, and it's just like a women's only program to empower women to be comfortable on the golf course. And I think these days you will hopefully find a women's program at most golf clubs, hopefully, right? And so what we offer is the original program was like a 1-day camp. So whether you're local, whether you're coming in from Toronto on a vacation, Alberta, wherever you're coming from, you're gonna come in, do a 4-hour, kind of 2 hours in the morning, lunch, 2 hours in the afternoon with me, and we're just gonna get you better. Like you're just gonna hang out with me, and we're gonna go over some fundamentals. We're gonna answer any questions you have, and we're just gonna get better. We added in kind of a 4 or 5 week series. I call it the Swing Like a Girl Improve series. And that's just kind of the same idea as the camps, but broken up to kind of a weekly program. And we've got Improve 2.0, Improve 3.0. We're really lucky at Predator Ridge. We have a really big practice facility. So we can do funky things. We can actually do like, I do a class on side hill lies. We've got enough space and enough kind of weird lies that we can actually hit like hybrids and full swings out onto the range from a ball above your feet, ball below your feet, hanging lie, right? Like we can do all those. So I try to make it fun. Like that's the number one, especially with most golfers, they want to have fun, but especially with women, it's a bit more social. And then we have a Swing Like a Girl night as well. So we kind of have a 3-prong, like we've got your 1-day camp, we've got your weekly clinics, and then we've got your kind of social 9-hole night as well. So that's Swing Like a Girl in a nutshell. We've done some fun exhibitions in the past as well. We had my friend Phyllis Metty, who's a long drive champion. She came up and did a long drive exhibition for our Swing Like a Girl group. And one of my other friends, Brittany Bomar, she putts side saddle. She actually makes side saddle putters. So she came up as well. And so yeah, we have a blast. We have a blast with the Swing Like a Girl program.
I remember talking side saddle putters when we were in Victoria together, and yeah.
Totally.
So you said, so the Improve portion has like essentially 3 different levels: Improve, Improve 2, Improve 3. Are ladies working through that? Like they have to go through level 1 to get to level 2 to get to level 3 type thing? Or are you trying to plug them in kind of based maybe more on ability level?
Typically, I like people to just start at Improve. Like I've had people, I've run this program for, I think this will be my 4th or 5th season coming up here with this program. And I just say, this is like your little rust buster at the beginning of the season. Like just hop into my Improve. I actually only offer the first part of the Improve program in the spring. So just get in there, get your fundamentals back in shape. And then as the year goes on, I offer 2.0 and then 3.0. So people or ladies have done like the whole series, and it's really cool. I should do like a little documentary on some of those ladies, because they're only taking group classes. Not a lot of them will take private lessons. But from where they start at the beginning, and they might be in my newbie series, and they go all the way to the 3.0 at the end, and they can they go from never having played golf or setting foot on a golf course to like, okay, I'm going. I know how to hit a bunker shot. I know how to kind of have a strategy for uneven lies. I know what to do out of the rough, like which club to choose out of what lie in the rough. Like it's pretty fun. It's pretty cool.
The thing I really like there that I think more people would maybe take away, you just said that you have players that never take private lessons. They only take these group lessons. And I feel, especially in a group setting, the instructor always covers a different topic. Like group sessions are always like, this week we're doing this, this week we're doing that, this week we're doing this. Where private lessons, we unfortunately shift to the player coming in and say, got to hit driver, got to hit driver, got to hit driver. And like,
yes,
I think it's so cool that you have players that don't take private lessons and maybe at times have never hit a golf ball before, and they will show up. And by the end, they're playing golf on the golf course. They're comfortable and they know how to do so many of those different things: fairway bunker shots, side hill lies, like the things that in a 1 hour lesson, they're never going to cover.
Yeah.
And then that leads to them on the golf course going, what the heck do I do here?
Yes, exactly, Ryan. So that's the cool part too about my like season long programs, because when we throw in those group classes, that's where we just get to do the stuff that we might never get to in a private lesson, right?
Right.
And so that's where I think there's such a nice balance between private lessons and group lessons, and obviously price point as well, right? A lot of these ladies are kind of just social golfers, and maybe they don't want to invest into whatever the price tag is on whatever package of or season long private lessons are.
Right.
But they can get their toes wet in the group stuff. And really, for me, it's just all about them getting their toes wet, because as soon as they hop into one of my classes, I know that they're going to have fun and they're going to see improvement. And so then they're maybe in for a couple sessions of that improve.
Right. How many ladies do you think have gone through your programs?
Ooh, that is a great
Like,
question.
are you talking like the hundreds?
Oh yeah. Oh, for sure.
Man, that is
I probably, before I had our child,
shout out.
shout out to my little guy Henry. I would run 8 classes a week for these Swing Like a Girl group classes. And I don't know, I'd run like, I don't know what that even is for the whole season, like 80 to 100 classes maybe.
Right.
I don't know. Right. And then you got 6 to 8 ladies per class. Some of them are repeats, some of them are new. So I probably
you were doing hundreds a year. You've run thousands of ladies. Wow, that is that's phenomenal.
A lot of them are repeats, but I see a lot of ladies. So the coolest thing too, Ryan, about this group class stuff and Swing Like a Girl is that's how I became a pretty good instructor. And like that's how I can go. Like it gets me so excited when I have 6 ladies in front of me and I'm doing a full swing class. And I'm going, okay, you get the guns out, right? And you're like, all right, I'm going to get all 8 of you better in 45 minutes. Here we go. And right. Wow, and so you kind of go down the line. You're like, okay, you need more kind of wrist structure. Okay. You need more arm structure. Okay. You need more rotation. Right. And so nothing gets me more excited than kind of going, okay, here's the challenge. I got 45 to 50 minutes, 8 people, let's go.
Right. Good for you. The one thing that it feels like you have that honestly I'm quite jealous of is such a diverse range of players you work with on a daily or a weekly perspective.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, it must be so fun working with high level players. And don't get me wrong, it is very fulfilling. It is very enjoyable. But there are times, and I tell this a lot, it's like when you're spending months to find one shot, like there are some grindy sessions out there. And I'm thinking about it now, and I imagine the scenario where maybe even sometimes instructors that get burnt out is they get in that scenario. But whether it's at the start of the day or at the end of the day, when you have an environment where you have that mindset, I've got 8 people, I've got 45 minutes, and you're bouncing around and you're constantly shifting your mindset or being challenged in a different way, like that's probably the days that you're like, I'm very charged up. And it probably correlates with the days that when you check in at the end of the day on Instagram, it's probably when you finish with that class.
Yeah, exactly. Right. It kind of you're right. It gives me energy to like go from, on an average day for me, I might have 3 club golfers in the morning, right? Break for lunch, go into my 1 p.m. Swing Like a Girl. I might have one more, let's say low handicap or whatever, club golfer, competitive club golfer, high school kid, junior elite, whatever it is, and then hop into a final, another like evening Swing Like a Girl. And so there's a mix, right? Like I get everything in one day, or I might have like a season-long group practice or something at the end of the day. So a couple things for me. You're totally right on like if you have just elite players or just like high level players, it can be really exhausting as a coach because they just need so much more energy from you. And it's not just, and this is where the season long program comes into play, it's not just the time that they're in front of you, right? And that's where the shifting of the mindset has to be. Like they're paying for us to be sending a text or sending a video at whatever 8 p.m. after we're done our day to their kid, or we're giving them support while they're in Victoria or while they're in Ontario. for a tournament, right? So those kind of clients and athletes just take more energy. And so for me, having that mix of like, I want a few of those,
Right.
right? Elite athletes, because it's so much fun to be part of their journey. But to have the group classes, those are the things that like get me pretty stoked. Those are the things that give me like the quick hits of energy.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to build in my dopamine hits. Where can I put them in?
Right. Exactly.
Oh, that's
So
fantastic. This has been a really good conversation. I really enjoyed it. I'm glad we kind of ended on, or kind of as we head towards the end, talked about swinging like a girl. There's one thing that maybe kind of the last thing I want to talk about is your husband has a little bit of a unique, or a little bit of a unique background, especially what he did for work, or what he still does for work. Give us a little bit of background on your husband and what he does and what he's up to. Because I think he's up there in like coolest like career paths of all time.
yeah, super cool. So my husband Jason, we met down in Phoenix when I was playing mini tours, and he was working at one of the clubs that I was playing at. And then at the end of the winter, whatever, the first year we met, I would go back to Canada, back to working, playing, all that stuff. And he goes back to Bandon Dunes. And that was his first year caddying at Bandon Dunes. And so I kind of was doing my thing. I was still playing. So I was all over the place, all over the world. And he was at Bandon Dunes caddying, and like caddying for these amazingly cool people. Like he randomly, even last night, we were talking about Massimo, like the clothing guru, Massimo. And
Yeah.
he's like, oh, yeah, I've caddied for him. He caddied in the same group as Steph Curry. He's caddied for all these crazy people. And it's just like, he is, what did he call himself at Bandon? Kind of a professional tour guide, I think is what he called himself. Like he's a great golfer, first of all. So he's a really good caddy as far as like, what is your job caddying? He's going to give you good information.
Right.
He caddied for me a lot too. So he's like, okay, he'll know lines for different players who hit at different lengths, different distances. But yeah, I think he caddied for about 10-ish years at Bandon. And so he knows Bandon in and out. He knows the stories. He knows the tapestry of Bandon, like the back of his hand. And even to just see the all the new courses open up, there's so much going on at Bandon.
Right.
And then he kind of, one of his main clients was No Laying Up, the guys at No Laying Up. And so then he got into some cool brand stuff with No Laying Up. And then that brought him to what he does now, which is making kind of souvenir signs for golf courses. So you can see his stuff in the Bandon Pro Shops. You can see it on the No Laying Up Pro Shop and other places around the country. So it's awesome. It's very cool what he does. He's a golf geek just like I am.
Right. Match made in heaven.
Yeah.
How did him caddying for you work out? Good team?
At first, not very well. we had to have some really strict like guidelines and boundaries.
Okay.
So when he was caddying for me, it was like, okay, we're caddying. Like, you can't call me pet names or babe or honey or anything like that when you're caddying, right? And so we actually I enjoyed it. Once we kind of got that down, I really enjoyed having him caddy for me, because I mean, he plays golf with me all the time. He knows my golf game probably the best of anyone.
Right.
So that was a fun, again, that feels like a lifetime ago, but that was a really fun kind of stage of our lives.
That's really cool. I'm glad we ended on that. Can I hit you with some rapid fire questions?
Ooh, yes.
I only have 3.
Okay.
And they got to be quick.
Okay, I'll try my best.
Are you ready?
Okay.
Best course you've ever played?
Terra ET.
If you could play one course for the rest of your life, what would it be?
Ooh. Bandon. I'm going to say Bandon because there's a bunch of courses at Bandon.
You got options there.
Yeah.
Favorite on-course drink?
Ooh. For my juniors, I would say like BioSteel electrolytes. And then for my social circle friends, probably like a canned Pinot Gris or something something like that.
Okay. Hopefully BioSteel gets bought, because they're in bankruptcy right now and I don't want them to go
Oh,
away.
okay.
I want the product to
Electrolytes of
stay.
some sort. Yes.
Favorite off-course drink?
Well, I'm a bit of a wino, so
Okay.
I would say any kind of Okanagan wine. Yeah,
Nice.
I'm into the red, like Merlot, Cab Sav, Pinot. I'm not picky, but
There's a huge wine scene in the Okanagan, correct?
oh yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Okay. I thought I knew that. Obviously, from where I'm at, like Southwestern Ontario, we have our own little like
right,
wine wing, and I wonder if both of them feel like the other ones aren't that good. But from what I've
right.
understood, there's a fantastic. I'm not a wine drinker, but I know that there's wine's a big deal over there.
It's a big deal. It's so good. Yeah, and I always like support local is kind of one of my things, and like in the
Right.
Okanagan, buy Okanagan wine for sure.
Right. Where can golfers find you online if they want to either follow along or reach out or take an online lesson? Where can people find you?
Yeah, you bet. So the easiest is my Instagram handle, which is Kyla Inaba Golf. And then my online platform for lessons is Skillest. So you can find me on
Sweet.
the Skillest app. Yeah,
Awesome.
absolutely.
Well, Kyle, this has been a fantastic conversation. Happy off season, happy nerd season.
Yes, thank you.
And I
To
really
you
appreciate
too.
you taking the time to come on.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate
All right.
it.
Thanks, Kyla.